Well, thank you, Chris, and it's great to be here, and it's a pleasure and honor to be here, and also excited to talk about this particular topic. And before I get started, I want to actually thank AIPMM for inviting me for this webcast today. Also, shout out to Podcast Village, because I'm actually recording a podcast out of this episode, and they produce it into a great listenable podcast. And then Digital Pens Solutions for doing some of the social media marketing, announcing this webcast and an additional webcast that we'll be announcing as well. And this entire presentation will be focused on answering the question, why are some organizations better than others at having a continuous stream of great products that their customers love? And we're going to talk about specifically 7 principles that many of these organizations that turn out a continuous stream of great products, one after another. What are the common denominators that these organizations have in common, besides the fact that they have product managers, product marketing managers, and often even brand managers working alongside? And the topic today will be breaking it down into different parts. And first we'll start with, why do most products fail? And why is it that most companies that have continuous streams of products are really the exception rather than the norm? And talk about why product management matters and how is product management deployed within organizations that have high-performing product management teams. We'll talk about some of the key takeaways and summary at the very end before we can get into Q&A. And so I would like to encourage all of you who are listening to type in your questions using the questions box, and we'll get to those during the Q&A portion. And I'm going to go through a lot of information. I just want to warn you, but we will be providing information where you can see the full slide deck so that you can view it after the session and you can actually get the most impact out of today's discussion. So feel free to type in your questions and we'll get to them during the Q&A portion. So let's get into the first part, which is, why do most products fail? Well, most products fail because of common reasons. And before we get started, we're actually going to do a poll. But as I mentioned before, there are very few companies that have a steady flow of successful products. And actually, for most organizations, it is a daunting challenge to be able to do so. And often, even though they may have lots of product managers, lots of brand managers, and product marketing managers working alongside developers and other people that are critical to creating and building great products that work, we're going to talk about specifically what happens to most products once they are launched into market. So most products will fail because there may be one of these, right? It is really your value proposition is unclear, meaning customers don't really know what they're getting. They're not really clear why they need to buy your product now. And even more, why do they need to buy your product instead of somebody else's product, your competitors? Often, your prospects don't know who you are, meaning your brand is completely unknown, and you may be a brand new company or a company that doesn't really focus on establishing brand awareness against specific segments of the population. And either way, even though you might have a great working product, people don't really know who you are and they just don't buy. Or your offering lacks a consistency that you're looking for. And often it's also about offering maybe incomplete. It may be that your minimum viable product is really an incomplete solution from the stakeholders and the customer's point of view, and even the users. And also it could be about you have an inconsistent customer experience, meaning that whatever you promise is not congruent with the actual experience that you're delivering, and you need to kind of be able to track any of this. When you're looking at why most products fail, it is usually any combination of these that lead to failure. And failure, I want to explain, is not that the products don't work, because often products do work and they work as designed. The issue is that they just do not reach profitability, and it could be any of these reasons or a combination of these reasons why they don't get to profitability. Either way, most vendors just kind of don't focus on really understanding the customer's point of view before they actually launch the product. They just come up with the idea, maybe even do some early prototyping, make sure that it works. They they can actually execute on the product development side. And when they launch into market, then any of those reasons are reasons why they're not capturing enough market share for their products to reach profitability. And often it is really the struggle of most companies because this is not a very reproducible formula, right? If you look at what is the failure rate of any product, regardless of what industry you're in or who you're selling into, this is not a very reproducible formula because most products, somewhere between 50 to 70%, even 80% of products will fail, meaning they do not reach profitability within 2 or 3 years after introduction into any market. And most organizations function that way. So what have product managers? They do have product marketing managers in place. So what's going on? Well, a senior partner of Boston Consulting Group, a consulting firm, actually has a TED Talk behind this. And basically says in today's environment where there's so much disruption going on and you have all sorts of different competitors coming in across sectors that are expected to grow very quickly, most companies fail because they do either too much of the same, meaning they only optimize on their product development processes and therefore only do mostly incremental improvement to existing products and don't focus enough on exploration. Or there are companies that purely only do exploration and then they don't optimize. Either way, any of those companies that only do either too much optimization only or too much exploration only will actually end up in the mixture of the failures that I spoke about earlier. And really, it's a struggle for most organizations because ultimately what you need to do as a company is you need to both optimize as well as explore at the same time. And it's really a challenge for most companies to figure out who's going to be assigned to optimizing versus who are they going to be assigning to exploring when it comes to projects and products. And there's actually a video that you can view that is actually the TED Talk video. A summary of that is on YouTube, and the URL at the bottom of the slide, you can actually go directly to that video and actually see this particular content. But the bottom line is that disruption means that for most vendors, you end up with something that tends to be too complex, and often it's hard to really simplify and enunciate or communicate your unique value in the marketplace. And making something complex appear simple is really hard to do. Furthermore, explaining all the things that you're doing when you're trying to solve a very complex problem in the marketplace is hard to simplify in 1 or 2 sentences, and often that's all you got when you have to develop your elevator pitch. So you have to be very, very much in tune with what is most important to your buyers in the way that you communicate the value proposition for your product. And that's what you need to do. Often a lot of concept validation and value proposition validation before you even start designing your product. And often there's a mixture between complexity, volatility, ambiguity, uncertainty. These are all things that are disruptive to any business. And if you're in an environment where you have to, any of these components or any combination of these components, you need to kind of figure out very quickly how to start unbundling these in your offering. And that means that you have to do a lot of market testing before you even, and a lot of concept validation before you even start designing or building either current products or new products in your organization. So that summarizes this part of this about why most companies struggle in the actual process of developing new products and launching products that are successful in the marketplace. We're going to now get into the next issue, which is why product management matters. And I mentioned that often many of these companies that are struggling to have a continuous flow of successful products that become profitable over time is difficult. And many of these organizations do have product managers in place. And we're going to actually do a poll and say, let's figure out, what is the most important task for any product manager. And we're actually going to do a poll, and here's the choices. And the question is, what is most important for product managers. And the options are, you can either choose one, lead product development, or are product managers mostly focused on doing the win-loss analysis while you're not capturing or retaining customers. Or the third option, which is to increase product profitability and focus on everything that's needed to increase profitability. Or is it number four, talking to customers and understanding what do they value and what is the right experience that you must deliver because that's what they're looking for. So we're going to allow you some time to answer this question, and then we're going to actually show the actual results from the polls. Great. All right. Well, guess what the answer is? The answer is that product management at its core is looking that no matter what you do, whether it's new products that you don't have in your portfolio yet, or products already in market that for which you are the product manager for, it is always to look for opportunities to increase profitability over time for your products. When you think about it, exactly why is that is? I mean, would you be able to increase sales if you don't understand customer needs and what they value? And is it enough to just sell them, or do you also need to figure out ways to cost reduce internal processes in order to ensure that even as you scale production, that you don't incur nonlinear cost in your operational costs? So it really is a struggle, but for the most part, product managers must be looking at the entire process, because in order to ensure profit, you need to ensure that there's a growth and a steady growth in sales at the same time that there's also a steady reduction of cost, operational cost, in the way that whatever goes on inside the organization to ensure that the cost of producing the products that you own continue to be reduced. And you're saying, well, wait a minute, how does that happen when I'm responsible for daily interactions with developers, with sales, with marketing, with all those other core functions that are vying for your time? And the essence is that most product management today is way too tactical, which is one of the things that we're going to talk about. And in order to show exactly what's going on, we're going to actually discuss, what is being said by outsiders about product management within companies. A poll that was done by CBS News reports that product management is the fourth most valuable corporate position or role within any organization, and they're only lower compared to executives, CEOs, and general managers within companies. And often, we're not necessarily actually doing any development. We're supposed to be orchestrating the value creation process within any organization. And if you think about what orchestration means, it means that when you have an orchestra, and that is your team within the building that you're coordinating, whether it's sales, marketing, developers, customer service, any of those stakeholders, that's the orchestra. You are the conductor. And the conductor means that you're not singing, you're not playing an instrument, even though you may be able to. You're simply making sure that you're managing the experience the audience is getting by conducting the team and making sure that the song is being delivered and is the right experience based on your understanding of what that piece is and what your audience is looking for in that experience. So orchestration is key. And orchestration doesn't mean that you're actually doing development. It doesn't mean that you're actually doing sales or marketing. And for the most part, most organizations are actually, over time, their product managers become too tactical, because all these are the key teams that any product manager is interacting with on a daily basis. Whether it's development, whether it's sales, marketing, executives, outsiders like suppliers and managing suppliers and distribution channels, these are all people within the building and also outside the building that need coordination, and often we get stuck doing way too much tactical work. And whereas the role is supposed to be mostly strategic, we end up in roles that end up being way too tactical. a lot more tactical than what we need to be for the most part. So some of the challenges we're going to talk about are shown on a recent survey, and this was a survey that was actually performed in 2015, and the results were actually published by the 280 group. And the results broke it down into 3 components that are key for any organization to be successful, right? The first component is, in order for you to, as an organization, to actually do this whole thing right about figuring out how to optimize the right things and how to explore in the right direction, and then be able to create a steady flow of successful, profitable products, you need to focus on aligning your people, your processes, and products to create more profit over time. And let me put this way. In order to get to profitability, you need to start with aligning the people within your building and all the outside stakeholders that are key to the value creation process, because that does include suppliers and distribution channels. Then you also align your processes internal as well as the way you deal with suppliers and distribution channels. Processes must be key to ensure that there's value being created as things go on within the organization and between organizations. And then you align that to products that are part of your portfolio, and then you look for alignment, because things that happen in the marketplace will always create misalignments, uncertainty, complexity, and you need to figure out how to do that right. And it requires the people, alignment of processes and products to create profitability margin that you can then reinvest into your company for growth. So challenges are in people. This is as per the survey, right? This is what the executives, vice presidents, directors of product management and product marketing that responded to this are saying about what's going on within their own companies, regardless of industry, regardless of the products they're selling, because this could be software or hardware technology-based products that are being sold. And about 900 people responded to this particular survey, and here are the results. When it comes to people, first issue is that 57% of product managers stated that their role is way too tactical. So what I pointed before, it's not just me saying it, this is real. It's happening in most companies, and this is one of the root causes as to why, even when there's lots of product managers, because most everybody in product management within a company is tactical, there's not enough people looking at the strategic side, the long term. What are we doing, not just for the next year, but what are we doing next year and beyond, and what are we doing 2-3 years from now, in order that we need to start exploring and learning today, because it's key for us to anticipate any disruptors in the marketplace. Second thing is that 43% of product managers feel that they are not able to influence either this critical decisions about products from either the development side or from the executive side. And often we're being told what to do about products rather than us leading that effort and deciding what are the right things to do and what are not the things that just don't add any value, and it's just not even worth going in that direction. We end up trying to convince either executives or our senior managers, and sometimes they're the ones that are telling us, no, do this instead, or convincing the experts, the technical experts, on what are the things that they need to prioritize when there comes to how they build the product. And the third piece is about 56% of executives indicated that their perception is very low of product managers, the team's ability and their knowledge about making the right decisions. Meaning, not only are we not viewed as leaders, the feeling from most executives within companies that do have lots of product managers and product marketing managers in their organizations is that the majority of us don't have the knowledge or the expertise to make decisions that lead to better profitability, more sales, less operational costs involved in what we do over time. And that's perception. So there's got to be something going on here, because it's kind of a two-way street. And when the executives of companies feel that we don't have the knowledge or the expertise to make the right decisions, and no one else within the organization views us as leaders, that's a huge issue when it comes to product management in order to get buy-in on anything that we want to propose within the organization. Then furthermore, 38% of product managers are not viewed as effective leaders. So that's basically the loss of leadership and the loss of perception that we don't have the ability to lead because of whatever reasons is one of the root causes that we're struggling with, no matter what product, what industry, or what market you're in, because this study went across industries, across markets, and included senior level executives and also product managers within companies that have multiple types of products. And it also, we gauged processes. And in any organization, you want to have some maturity of processes, because you can be either purely reactive, meaning you're in the lower phase of process maturity, and you're mostly reactive, meaning you're in ad hoc mode, just doing whatever it feels right, just because either somebody came up with it, somebody suggested it, or somebody told you to execute that activity. And if you're in the middle, you have some core processes defined, but not consistently applied across products. And optimized, meaning that you have a high adoption and high maturity of processes, and they're being applied across all your products, and you've training continuously your teams, not just product managers, but everybody that touches a product on the right processes that you need to be following based on where the product is at in its life cycle. Well, what we're finding is that when it comes to process, we want to figure out where are you as an organization. So we're going to do a poll, and I would like to get each one of your perceptions as to where you're at. Are you in a company that is mostly reactive, meaning you're just doing whatever you're told, or whatever somebody says, hey, great idea, let's do it, and you're in an ad hoc mode? Or are you in the second portion, which is you're partially defined, meaning you have some core processes defined, maybe some missing, and maybe not all processes are being applied across all your entire product portfolio. That's number two. Number three, you're fully optimized, meaning you have consistent process maturity being applied to all your products across teams, not just product management, but across everyone who touches a product. Which one are you? If you can respond to this, and then we can show results. Okay, so let's look at what came out from the poll, because this is kind of consistent to what we heard on the survey. As far as process is concerned, here's the first big outcome about processes. 42% of executives indicated their biggest challenge is process, meaning they're either ad hoc or have incomplete processes that are not being applied consistently throughout. 51.7% of companies are where the processes are not well defined. So they're either in stage 1 or stage 2 ad hoc or partially defined, not in the optimized mode. 49.2% of companies do not use a consistent process. And then 70% of companies where product managers are also product owners. And for those of you that use agile methodologies, I can tell you this: the biggest mistake is if you're a product manager, you're also the product owner. Because by definition, now you have daily interaction with development, and you're stuck 100% of your time is tactical. And that's sucking up your entire time. And there's no way that you can dedicate or do anything that is about planning for the long term, or at least trying to figure out how to anticipate what you need to do and what is most important, so that to ensure that whatever product you're working on, at the end of the day, when you are launching either the new capabilities or launching the product into the market, that product is actually going to become profitable. And this is all about process efficiencies. So let's move on to the next one. So now we find deficiencies in people and process, and I mentioned the third is all of these will impact as what you do to products and which products, and figuring out which products are the ones that you need to protect or that you need to defend in the marketplace, because these are either your cash cow products or your stars. And what I mean by that, if you have ever done any kind of BCG analysis on your product portfolio, cash cows and stars are good. And there's a difference as to why you need to have a combination of both, not just one or the other. Stars are usually highly profitable products. However, that's not necessarily where your core revenue is. That's going to be only a portion of your revenue. Really low-hanging fruit, highly profitable every time you sell. And then cash cows, that's constant revenue, month to month, year to year, quarter to quarter, constant cash flow to the company, not necessarily highly profitable, but you want to make sure that at least there's margin there, just not the same margin that you're getting from your stars. And you want to have that in order to have good profitability overall. Your average profitability as a company is going to be above the average within your industry when you have a great balance of both cash cows and star products. So here's the outcome on profit. Because you see all these deficiencies in people and process, this is what, as per the survey, here's what the same responses are saying are happening to the profitability within organizations that are having people and process issues, right? Only 29% indicated that their executive team completely understands product management. So it means that most people just don't understand the role of product management. And this is where as you know, if you have Agile and you're deploying Agile, you're actually ending up being the product owner for your product. And then therefore you end up being way too tactical. On average, 21% of products fail to meet customer needs, meaning that no one in the building is going out talking to customers to, number one, understand what is it they're looking for. And even though they might have the same basic need or the same basic problem, maybe their preference as to how you solve the problem is going to be different than your approach, and you need to understand that even before you start designing a proposed solution. And often you miss that because you might have a great solution, but it's completely different. And in essence, when everybody needs a mousetrap, you're creating a mousetrap that no one really wants to buy. PMs estimate that profits would increase 34% on an average if the function was optimized. And what I mean by optimization here is that you basically start aligning and eliminating the issues that I pointed out earlier are deficiencies in the people themselves and the perception of product managers and product management within the company at all levels within the company. And that you also are optimizing and starting to make sure that you have consistent processes and an ongoing process maturity, process adoption process by which processes are continuously being improved, eliminated if they're no longer adding value, or creating new ones because now you have a change in the marketplace or a change in your process, in your flow as to how you create value, and now you need to create new processes. And sometimes even automation means new tools. It means that you're actually saving time, but now you need to ensure that your processes are updated to ensure that there's adoption in your tools that are supposed to now help you automate some of the things that are going on. And so the majority of the point is that the majority of this issue that I pointed out earlier can be really tracked down to exactly the deficiencies that were found through the survey, which is deficiencies in people, deficiencies in processes is what you need to start applying and having consistency as to how you treat each and every product in your company, regardless of whether these are products already in market or products about to go into development, because now you're gonna have your next set of products that you want to have for the future of the company itself. And what we find is that because most companies actually have deficiencies across people, processes, it ends up basically being a process by which you may have garbage in, garbage out, and that garbage out is your product portfolio. So it shows in your product portfolio when you actually do the analysis and you have way too many question marks, way too many loss leaders, dogs that you need to prune over time, and then figure out how to increase the number of cash cows and stars both within your company to increase the overall profitability of your entire portfolio. And when I mean portfolio is not a one-person task to be able to analyze and then figure out what's next for the portfolio. It's the entire product management team. And product portfolio analysis is one of the tools that you need to instill one of the processes and core product management processes that you don't get to do if you're the product owner within your company for your product. And that means that you need to kind of figure out how to realign your entire product management structure in order to be able to execute some of these core processes that are about your strategy. What do you need to do today versus what do you need to do a year from now, and what do you need to start learning so that you're prepared for what's coming 2-3 years down the road, and it allow to at least leapfrog competitors or outsmart disruptors. So we're going to talk about 7 principles now that are all about building high-performing product teams. And we're going to go through them very quickly, and you might have lots of questions. Make sure that you're typing in your questions, because I'm just going to basically give a highlight on this and make sure that I focus on giving enough time for questions during the Q&A portion. So the first principle, if you want to execute and being able to figure out how to align people, processes to products, to increase your profitability of the entire product portfolio and for your business so that you can continue to reinvest in business growth for the future of your company, the number one thing is you need to make sure that your executives are into this, and that there's clarity that from the CEO to everyone in your C-suite that something must be done about restructuring and improving everyone that is in product management, and restructuring so that you have people that have years of experience sort of focusing mostly on the strategic side of things when it comes to the entire product portfolio, and that you have the majority of your team working on the tactical things that need to be executed, that is mostly about optimizing things that are going for each and every product that is part of your portfolio, or each and every product that is about to go into the product development processes, new products that you may not have in market yet. You've got to get executive buy-in. In order to do so, you've got to educate your C-suite. Often, if there's a low level of confidence from the C-suite, you've got to make them realize that they've got to do something about restructuring the product management structure within the company, and also changing the perception, the culture, so to speak, within companies. And that starts by educating the C-suite. And if you need help, there's actually a great video that's available on YouTube from the 280 Group. It's really a 5-minute video, and it's great if you want to educate your C-suite, because all you need to do is send them the URL at the bottom of this slide, and that is really your point of entry as to we need to improve our people, our processes, so that we can continue to ensure our product is profitable, so that we can actually start leveraging that growth so that the entire company continues to grow. Number 3, create a realistic plan. So once you get the buy-in, make sure that now you have a plan so as to how you're going to actually start updating, improving, maybe even creating brand new processes that are going to be led by product managers, product marketing managers within the company. And that you start also creating the structure of your team, because you're going to have the hierarchy set up, which you have somebody that is either at the executive level or has direct contact on an ongoing basis with this entire C-suite within the company to guide critical decisions about the entire product portfolio. Senior level people that are basically taking care of the cash cows and stars, your products that are going to be there for and that you want to defend in the marketplace. And also entry level positions that may be people that get involved in the more tactical work about optimizing and executing all the right things for the products that are in the queue. Whatever's going on, make sure you have a realistic plan. And in order to do that, make sure that not only do you set goals and objectives, and you can actually use the OKR method if you want, just make sure that your objectives are smarter. And what I mean by smarter is that everybody mostly is familiar with what SMART means. Specific, measurable, relevant, time-bound objectives. But you also need to make the ER is important, because you need to figure out how often to evaluate whatever you're tracking and you agree to track, and even grade from a scale from 0 to 100%. And you don't expect that you're always going to be 100%, because that's not reality, right? but you want to make sure that at least you agree as to what is success, and if things are working or not. What is the acceptable percentage of things from 0 to 100% when things are going to be mostly green? What is that level where things are going to be going into yellow or amber, or they're in the red and you need to do something about it? That means you have to readjust. And how often to evaluate and readjust should be part of your plan to make sure that it's implementable. Number 4, define a clear process. This goes into not only do you, in order for a process to be clear, guess what? It doesn't just need to be in writing, it needs to be properly adopted within the organization, and that only comes through training, education, especially when you're changing processes or when you're creating new ones or you're eliminating new ones. You want to make sure that everybody who's involved in actually implementing the process is actually knows exactly what the process now moving forward will be, because there's changes. And that means continuous training, not just product management, but everyone that is part of that touches a product. And often having a life cycle process, makes it easy, because you know that when you're about to go into new product development, there are certain things that you do when you're in the conceive phase compared to when you're in the planning phase, when you're already building and basically going from an alpha version of your product to a beta version of your product, and that you continues to do market testing, and you can start market testing even before there is a product. I find that most companies miss this opportunity because they're not even looking for this, because everybody is just too busy building the product. But you could actually be testing your concept first. And a concept can be a drawing. It could be just that you quickly enunciate on an elevator pitch, what problem you're solving, who has that problem, and your proposed solution and the value of your solution, and start testing, is it value A or value B? Which one are they mostly getting the right reaction against a specific segment, when these segments may be your target customers. And most people that are way too tactical are just building products, dealing daily with developers, software developers, no one doing the concept validation, concept testing that you could be doing even before there is a product. So you gotta really focus on making sure that there's role clarity, and sometimes you allowing some task ambiguity, because not always are you gonna be able to say, hey, from 0 to 100%, I'm always gonna be 100%. Perfection is the enemy of good enough. And what I'm talking about here is you need to at least make sure what is the difference between you as a product manager compared to a senior developer, compared to a product owner, because these are all different roles that may be needed based on where things are at. And also, number 5, the 5th principle is about training your product team. Training so that you are actually knowing exactly, everybody agrees, which products need to be defended and which ones are your cash cows, which ones are your stars, what are the tactics that you're going to be using to make sure that you're making the right decisions for those products, because at all costs, you want to continue selling them and outselling your competitors. And number 2, that if you have way too many question marks or way too many dogs in your portfolio, how are you going to exit them gracefully from the marketplace if they're already in the market? Just continue to prune your portfolio. These are all things that have to be clear. And then have clarity as to, if you're going to be focusing on having a minimum viable product, make sure viable means the right things within your organization. Because any product that is viable means that they have to be valuable to a set of stakeholders that are going to be your customers, and that the size of the market and what they're willing to pay is a large enough market that even if you capture a small fraction of that, your product is going to reach profitability, even if you don't require to be the market share leader. You just need to get to an acceptable percentage of the population buying your product in order for this to get to profitability. And valuable means you need to test what is considered value against your targets before you even launch the product. Feasible is that not only is it valuable, but now you can execute on that because you have all the expertise that you need or you have access to the expertise you need because you might go to your suppliers or your distribution channels, or maybe even bring in additional technology partners that can help you ensure that you can execute when you have certain areas of expertise where you're deficient, and now you're partnering with someone else to ensure that those are not deficiencies. And you have to make sure that you can actually build the product the right way, and make sure that whatever you're doing is scalable. And scalable means that you don't want to just continue to have an increase in non-recurring development work, because that's basically just throwing people to solve the problem. I mean, this is exactly what we see is happening to Tesla, for example, right now, where they hired all these people, and now that they're trying to figure out how to get the right traction and they're having difficulties, now they're starting to ramp down because they know that they started bringing way too many people just to solve the problems. Now that they're about to scale the business, they need to start trimming down because they had way too many people, and now they're looking to start automating and then building the right processes. That a combination of automation with people and experts, the right balance of experts, is how they're going to reduce their operational cost to ensure that based on the number of people who are interested in buying the next Tesla model, that they're going to be profitable even in the first few years of launching the product. So in essence, you have to make sure that at any one time, the product, you're looking at what's going on in the market, who are the customers, what do they consider value, and ensure that it aligns with your business strategy and your ability to execute process. It's all on the organizational side, because you will need to have structure, platforms, tools to help you in making sure that you're lining up people, processes to products. And in essence, you're developing across two different tracks. One is about understanding customer and market development to ensure there's a high product to market fit of your products across the entire portfolio, and also aligning what goes on to ensure your operational costs are kept in check, so that even as you start scaling the sales, it doesn't increase your costs prohibitively where now you're going to be not profitable. And you need to start assigning people to that. Number 6, define tasks and deliverables. And that means that you need to have a process where you have clarity as to what does it mean to be in the conceive phase, and what documents do I need to deliver, what information must it contain, because this is the information that is needed by whoever owns critical decisions about what we're going to be doing with this product, to be able to ensure that the decision gets done and that everybody's clear as to, number one, what is the decision that needs to be made, who is the decision maker, because often it's not the product managers, it's someone else, usually some executive. And number 3, it is about understanding what is the key information that the decision maker needs to have summarized in order to make the right decision at the right time. That's the essence of product management. And you're not necessarily providing all the content, you're just integrating it. You're orchestrating the development of the content in a document that is summarized, presented to whoever is the decision maker, usually an executive, in order to execute on that. And then number 7, we talked about the evaluation and readjustment. You've got to have metrics. Metrics that are not just about profit, not just about cost and revenue. It's got to be things like number of customers that are expressing interest, number of leads in your top of funnel that are going now into becoming warm leads or even hot leads. These are all marketing efforts, not sales. And making sure you have a good critical mass, top of funnel to middle of funnel to hot leads to conversions. And that you're basically not only tracking that, but you're also keeping track of fixed and variable cost structures for your product. These are all metrics that you need to have in place. And often it's about also measuring brand awareness compared to your competitors, and not only doing internal benchmarking across products and across organizations. If you happen to have multiple locations, multiple markets that you're selling into, you also are benchmarking your direct competitors. Because at the end of the day, you're not going to be perfect, but what you really want to key on is whatever you're doing, you want to make sure that at least whatever results, whatever numbers are coming out, you're outperforming competitors. If you focus on that, don't expect 100% perfection because that's unrealistic. Just develop the metrics and understand what is the right level of each metric in order for you as a company to outperform your direct competitors against competing products. And those may be multiple stakeholders depending on how large your product portfolio is. So summarizing, and now we're getting ready for the actual summary before we get into Q&A. The 7 principles are here. Number 1, get executive buy-in. Number 2, educate the C-suite. Make sure you get their buy-in, and now you put together a plan as to how you're going to align the product team, the product managers, and everybody else who's touching products within the company to start then having a clarity in your process, training your product team as to the process and what they're going to do based on where the product is at. And also, number 6, developing the right tasks and objectives and having the right metrics in place to make sure that you're gauging and figuring out very quickly how often you need to evaluate and how often you need to actually readjust what you're doing, because whatever you decided, it may not necessarily be working. And it's not just about internal execution, it's about benchmarking with competitors, as I mentioned. So that's a summary, and actually we're going to get into Q&A. This is actually the summary of my slides. We're going to provide full access to your slides, but make sure that you're typing in your questions. And before I actually get into Q&A, I also want to announce I'm actually going to be doing a future AIPMM webcast. So same time, same channel, July 13th. That's my next talk, and we're going to be doing a talk on how to achieve smarter outcomes when you have way too much disruption going on. That's one of the things that I focused on at the very beginning. You know, sometimes people are just executing and just doing, not really looking at how to clearly differentiate their value proposition compared to other competitors and new competitors when you have lots of disruptors. Also, you can actually see recent talks and documentation, slides, videos, and podcasts from my talks. If you go to this URL, you'll see a list of the talks that I've done. And actually, there's a couple of them that I've done recently this year at different product camps, and you can actually view them. All you need to do is just go to the landing page and check out the slides, listen to the podcast or the video, and then get in touch with me if you need help in some of these things that I talk about. For more information, you can also feel free to reach out to me and set up a free discovery appointment. You can use the URL here and go directly and schedule a suitable time that works for you. We can just chat, figure out where you're at, and give you some direction, talk about ways that I can help you for the long term. Or you can just email me, connect with me on LinkedIn, or follow me on Twitter, any of these things, and also visit my website. So with that, we're ready to proceed with Q&A. Well, I spoke about this, and this is, the survey clearly says, this is one of the issues, right? The respondents for the survey was, the perception is that neither the executives believe that the product managers have the right expertise to make decisions about products, and even the developers, the engineers, don't believe the product managers have the right expertise to give them guidance. They're not perceived as leaders, period. And so what I talk about, the number one key thing to focus on if you want to, let's say, become an exceptional product manager is you need to sharpen your leadership skills. Because bar none, becoming an exceptional product manager means you have to become an exceptional product leader, and you're viewed as a leader not just by your peers and by your executives and senior managers within the company, you're also viewed as a leader within everyone that you're dealing with on a daily basis that touches your product. And what I say that is there's just like there are ways to develop hard skills, you can also focus on growth and growing your own soft skills. And that includes things like your communication, your behavior, your appearance, the way you manage yourself, and you either lead by example or you lead by delegation. There are different leadership styles. So you want to make sure that you're developing that and at least understanding how is it that you can really start growing and developing and becoming really good in developing your soft skills, specifically leadership skills. I hope that answers your question. And so let me know if that hit the mark or if you need more expansion on that. So as I mentioned, if you follow the first 2 steps of the 7 principles, number 1, get buy-in from the executives, because often, people say, there's a saying that says that culture eats strategy for breakfast, right? And that's really what happens. You might have a brilliant product strategy that you come up with and you communicate that. If you are in an environment where you have the wrong culture or the wrong environment, it doesn't matter what your strategy is, it is just not going to be executed. Process is all about understanding that whatever strategy, whatever things you need to do for the long term can be broken down into objectives and tactics, and that that everybody that is part of a cross-functional team, much larger than just product management, that everybody who touches the product is really clear as to what are the tasks and deliverables when there's handoffs involved. And realizing that sometimes, winning in the marketplace is not an individual. It never is. It is a team effort. And even though you may think that the race is a sprint or a marathon, guess what? It is not. It is a team effort. It's really more of a relay race where there's handoffs among the different team players where they're not all product managers per se. There's handoffs between development and testing and the people who are preparing the product to be actually implemented or used or adopted by buyers, customers. All those things are things that are important, that actually ensures that you have a consistent customer experience no matter what type of customer buys your product. So you need to have that clarity as to how you align, and you got to start with having buy-in, because the only ones that can change culture within any organization or that can actually ensure that you have the right environment is the executives within the companies. And so if you're in an environment where you're a product manager, and you might be a senior product manager or even a director level, but everybody in the C-suite, all your executives don't believe that you have the capabilities or the expertise to lead, you need to start answering that homework. And you start with educating your C-suite and then saying, let me help you, because we need to restructure our team and our processes in order to become a much better company that actually starts strengthening and getting the right product outcomes across our entire product portfolio. So I tell people that, products and services are no different, right? Most people saying, a product, they mean a good, something that is tangible, like some artifact that they have in their hands. And it could be a mobile device, or it could be, a remote control to some other widget. Those are goods. Services, they can be the same process. If you're a service provider in a service provider industry, and that's all you're selling, your products are all services, you can actually treat services and the development of new services that you're selling into the marketplace using the same framework that is the product management lifecycle. Because products are services, services are products. The only difference is that services are purely intangible, unlike goods, because goods are tangible. So usually you want to make sure that at least you understand, what the service is, who is it for, what problem are you solving, and for whom, and what are they willing to pay, and you're packaging the service. And often packaging means that you have to brand the service in order to make it tangible in the minds of your customers, because at that point you're presenting the brand. And as an example, I can say, hey, if I tell you that I want to ask Alexa, hey Alexa, how do I sell my product? You know what Alexa is. It's just voice command driven, and it's a service because there's some sort of intelligence on the other end interpreting what I'm saying and then giving me some information based on what I'm asking that intelligence. Alexa is a service, and Alexa is a brand. It's the same thing that you can do for your services. You can brand your services to create some tangibility, and it's no different from Alexa, Siri, the Google Assistant. These are all pretty much the same things, just different brands. Services, and services that require lots of technology, lots of software, and cloud interfaces on the back end. It's basically a service that you're doing, and you're selling that as a service. Thanks a lot for attending today's webcast, and we hope to see you again, same time, same channel next month. Thank you very much.